And now I know none of us here ever blame God or anyone else, but what we have to do is to understand that when we're responsible for something, we've got to keep on keeping on with it. And so the master comes back. Y'all, what have you been doing? Nothing. He takes stock of all the wealth that he's lost and everything, and then he chains them to a task. And they have to stay chained to their task until they pay back all that he's lost. And we call this karma. So they lost all that they had in their care through neglect. They were neglectful in their life and in their duties. And how are we going to grow? How are we going to grow spiritually if we neglect what's ours to do spiritually? That supports our spiritual nature. So perhaps we could act if the payoff is tomorrow. The master's going to return tomorrow. And maybe not some nebulous time down the road. Because karma is. And then we begin to be responsible for our actions or inactions. And one thing that we like to share about the parables like that, the master left and left the 10 to guard the lands and wealth. Well, it was an opportunity for those servants to move up into mastership consciousness. Do you see? The man was already a master, and he had amassed this wealth and these lands. And these 10 had the opportunity, if they paid attention and did what they were to do, to lift into that mastership consciousness. But now they have to go through some lessons before the wheel comes around again to give them that next opportunity. Then he goes on and says, there was a man, a wealthy man, that had this beautiful farm and was wealthy and everything. And he just went to sleep one night and didn't have a guard or didn't even lock the doors. And when he awoke that morning, everything was stolen. And he says, gosh, if I knew a thief was going to come, I would have locked my door. I would have had a guard. You see? An old saying that we like to say in metaphysics is, lock your car and trust God. You see? So, and once again, the spiritual essence aspect, the metaphysics of it, is to begin to understand that we need to guard our consciousness, guard our spiritual consciousness. Don't go to sleep in our life. See, don't fall asleep, don't fall into race consciousness. You see, we've grown in our spiritual awareness and manifested our spiritual awareness and consciousness. But if we neglect it, a lot of times people forget it, and then they fall. See, the fallen man, fallen out of our spiritual awareness. And then the next parable that I want to go over is the parable of the 10 virgins. And there was going to be a wedding. And so the 10 virgins were picked to meet the bridegroom. And there were 5 virgins that they had these lamps, these oil lamps, and 5 of them filled their lamps up with oil, and 5 didn't. And so they're waiting and waiting and waiting for the bridegroom, but he doesn't come at the appointed hour. And when he finally comes, it's like midnight. The bridegroom's coming, the bridegroom's coming. And so the 5 that's got their lamp filled with oil, they trim the wick and light it, and they go to meet the bridegroom. And the other 5 that didn't fill their lamps up, went to the 5 that had oil and said, hey, can I borrow some oil? No. I got enough for my lamp. You see? They said, just go to the merchant and buy some oil and come back. And so when the bridegroom came and the 5 were taken with the bridegroom and they entered in the building, and the 5 that didn't have oil, they'd go out to the merchant and they buy oil, they come back and they're knocking on the door, hey, we got our oil, come on back. But the man at the door didn't recognize them. He didn't let them in. And so they left in shame. This is a parable of the marriage of spirit and matter. The young females, virgins, females in metaphysics represent intuition. And these were young, so we would look at that as our young, new intuition. And the oil is light. To support our intuition with light. The lamp could be our vessel, couldn't it? Our body. So to support our intuition with light, so that our body keeps feeding our intuition, and then we're ready. We will be ready to meet our higher self. We'll be ready to meet the Christ. And so, one of the lessons here on all levels, you can't keep living your life the way you want to, and then just to expect to awaken to the world of spirit. You don't have the consciousness to enter in. You don't have the right vibration. Everything's energy. You see? So to begin to look at these stories, and he wasn't telling these stories just to pass time or to get some accolades. These are teaching tools, and he had to teach to the level of consciousness. There were people at all different levels of consciousness. Some of them he was just planting seeds. Some of them he was quickening them to commitment. Some of them he was waking up to release that judgment. What isn't one of his most powerful teachings is judge not? And then to begin to live in right relationship, behavior. And as we follow these steps, we're preparing to meet our Christ. We're preparing to meet the Christ. We're preparing to be the Christ. Preparation. The parables of preparation. I'd recommend chapter 158 in the Aquarian. It's very powerful. And a couple days down the road, he gets arrested. So it really, he knew. The ones that are going to come after you, teach these people. I think what's fascinating to look at is in Jesus' life, he came for the preparation age. Like after he went through all his tests and everything, and he's getting his plan ready, what's he going to do? What's my ministry going to be? His ministry was for the preparation age. It wasn't the perfect age. We live in the perfect age now. The preparation age was the age of Pisces. And in the preparation age, some of the simple rites and object lessons that man needed were the teachings of Jesus Christ. He taught baptism, communion. He lived love. So man needed these outer forms to begin to quicken their consciousness within so they could begin to live. And if you begin to follow these steps of these 5 different parables, you will begin to shift your consciousness. You will begin to let go of the blocks and limitations that keep you from manifesting, living, expressing your divine nature.